Hey guys, welcome back to Automotive Chaos. My name is Ryan. Today's project is getting the frame for the 56 prepped, painted, and ready to slide back under the car. I'm ready to see this thing together again and actually be able to move it out to clean the garage. So a couple things on the list today. I want to break down the front and rear brakes. I want to pull all of the brake lines and fuel lines off the frame. We also have a couple of makeshift floor braces on there from when the previous owner did the patches on this car. So that all has to come out. Yeah, degrease it, prime it, paint it, and basically just make it look like it belongs under a car that is now in one piece and all metal. So let's get started. So a lot of the factory body bushings are still stuck in the frame. So I'm just going to go around and clear those all out with a pry bar. I want to go over pretty much the entire frame with a wire wheel, and I also have a rust treatment that I'll probably end up applying, and then we'll pressure wash this thing and clear out all of the channels. But for now, get the rest of the body bushings out, and then I think we'll move on to brakes. All right, so I ordered new wheel cylinders, and I have new shoes. I still have to get drums, but I'm going to try and keep as much of the factory springs and hardware that I possibly can. So I'll go ahead and break this down. If anything I end up keeping, we'll throw in that rust dissolver that I used in the last video for the emergency brake hardware. Try and bring that back so we can use it. But for now, I'm going to break all this down. I'm going to end up cutting the brake line in the back. I'll just slide the old wheel cylinders out from the front. They're clearly in need of replacement, so I'm not going to bother trying to get a line wrench on there because I don't think that would go very well. So let's break this down and try and get at least one side knocked down to where it's bare. Well, the passenger side fought way harder than it should have, but it's finally apart. Now, on the backing plate, if you can see it underneath that hole there, is actually to adjust this bar here, which goes in between both shoes. Now, that would have helped if it was actually the shoes that it was getting caught up on, but I think it was actually seized to the this hub on the spindle itself. But either way, it's free. I ended up ordering all new hardware. I should hopefully have that tomorrow. But we're going to move on, and I'm going to get the rest of the brake lines off. Most of them pretty much just fell off. That's the remainder of the line that goes to this bracket and then branches off to the center on the axle housing. I want to get this bracket off, which is, I got the clip off, but it's a little seized on there, so we'll have to work at that. I want to get these 2 unions off. I'd like to reuse those if I can. We'll probably let those soak overnight and see if I can break those lines loose and clean them out. And I think after I'm done with that, probably go and we'll start scraping some of the grease. That pile is what was just caught in the small section of the frame that I was able to get out in those 2 holes. So we're definitely going to have to go through and blow all the rails out because there's a ton of garbage in this thing. I'm almost wondering if this thing sat in the mud for years before it was finally moved with the amount of stuff that's come out of here. And all of this stuff that's caked on to the axle tubes and the housing, I mean, it's everywhere, and it doesn't just flake off. I've had to go at it with a scraper. So I'll keep working my way up the frame. I'm going to take these off as well. These were the makeshift floor braces that somebody welded in when they patched the floors. So we'll get rid of these, grind that flush. Same thing with this one here. So I'll keep working and I'll bring you guys back when we've made a little progress. All right, so let's get these front brakes apart. Guys, don't go into the garage to get the right tool. Just use what you have in your pocket. Well, they made it easy for us. Nothing there. It saved me a lot of trouble. In order to get the front wheel cylinders out, this larger nut that actually holds on both the dust shield as well as the wheel cylinder. I think it's 1 inch. I only use an impact socket. Just kidding. All right, at this point, I pretty much have the frame broken down to bare bones. All the brakes are completely disassembled. All the brake lines have been removed. Obviously, we left the front suspension and the rear suspension. Probably going to end up doing leaf spring bushings in the rear. Not too sure what to do about the front, because the more I'm looking at the control arm bushings and some of the other stuff on here, I don't really know if I want to put this thing back together with that stuff on the front. So we might come back to that. But for now, I want to scrape as much of the garbage off this frame that I possibly can. I took those 2 mock floor braces off. And then this was the stuff that I was talking about earlier. This was pretty much like all over. I don't know if that's undercoating that's just embedded with dirt or what. So I'm going to put the camera down, get to work on that, try and knock as much of this stuff off as I can. And then we have to actually clean the frame rails out. And I don't know if you could see inside here, but there's just stuff embedded everywhere on this thing. So definitely don't want to leave that in. And I'm hoping this thing looks good when we're done. So let me get to scraping. All right, I'm gonna call it for tonight. I blew out as much of the frame as I could. You could see all the debris on the floor. Got a decent amount of stuff out. Last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spray the entire frame down with degreaser. And then first thing tomorrow, we'll roll this thing out, give it a good pressure washing, clean all the rails out again, and then I have a rust treatment to put on this before we paint it, and then we get to plumbing. And I ended up ordering tubular upper and lower control arms for this car because All right, so it's the next day. I'm going to end up breaking down the front suspension. We're going to pull the coil springs out, remove both upper and lower control arms. Like I said, I ordered tubular ones for this car. So we're going to start with taking the steering components off. And of course, the first one, the nut, looks like absolute garbage. I tried heating it, soaking it. It's not moving. So I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm just going to cut it. Not ideal. This is all going to get replaced anyway, so it's not really a problem. I'd prefer to take it apart the conventional way, but not really leaving us with much of a choice. So I'll zip that off, and then yeah, we'll go from there. All right, a little more success on the passenger side. I was able to get that cotter pin out. Came out in 6 pieces, but got it out. I'll go ahead, we'll back this nut off, and I'll use it's really a ball joint separator, but it should work for this as well. And we'll pop this out, and we can take the entire center link out. We'll have a little bit more room to work around and get these control arms off. All right, that's out of the way. And we'll just break loose the bracket on the inner frame rail here, and we can drop that whole assembly out from under. Next up is my absolute least favorite part. I hate compressing coil springs, mainly just because it makes me nervous. So we're gonna do it. The way I do it is I just use a piece of all thread, and then I have a 1/8 inch thick piece of steel with a 1/2 inch hole drilled in it. We'll put that through the rod, or we'll put the rod through the plate, double nut it on the bottom, and then we'll tighten the bolt on the top, and that should bring the coil spring up. Once that's done, we can go ahead and loosen up our upper and lower ball joint, separate the spindle, drop that down, and then very carefully, and while looking the other way, undo the nut on the top of the threaded rod and slowly bring the lower control arm down so we can get the spring out, and hopefully it doesn't blow a hole in the side of my house. All right, so the compressor's in place. I got the plate across the bottom of the control arm. So I'll start tightening that up, and hopefully that will bring the spring up a little bit. All right, so I have the nut for the lower ball joint loosened up. I'm gonna grab that ball joint separator and try and get that press fit stud out of there. If that'll lower down a little bit, we'll probably end up taking that all the way off, release all the tension, and then we can start undoing our spring compressor. Oh, face is still attached. No holes in the house. And one spring is out. So I'm going to go ahead and yank both control arms off, and then we'll get started on the other side. All right, last step before we pressure wash. I'm going to go along the entire frame, top, bottom, with a wire wheel and a wire brush, knock the heavier rust scale off. We'll pressure wash it, roll it back into the driveway, and then tonight I'm going to treat it with a rust converter, which I'll show you guys in a little bit. Tomorrow we should be ready for paint. All right, got the frame rolled out front, got the pressure washer hooked up. Time to blast this thing and see how it comes out. Really quick before I push the frame back here, I just swept up, and this is all of the stuff that we knocked off the frame and out of the frame And it's a lot. But with it neatened up a little bit back here, I'm going to get this pile out of the way, bring the frame back in, coat it with the rust preventative, and then tomorrow we can paint. And the last portion for tonight, we're going to be applying this wizardry in a bottle to our frame. This stuff is called Osfo. I did seconds and seconds of research on Amazon to find a product that people seem to like, and this was it. So what this does is this will change iron oxide, which is rust, the iron phosphate, and that's basically a paintable surface. So although we knocked majority of the heavy scaling rust off of this frame, this will hopefully give us a nice prepped surface to paint. So I'm going to load some of this up in the sprayer. This comes pre-diluted if you buy the 1 gallon. So I'm going to spray the frame. They also give you this handy little towel. So once the entire frame's coated, I'll probably just go over it once with this. And then we'll come back tomorrow and lay some paint down. Hope this stuff works better than it smells, because it kind of smells like an old egg sandwich wrapped in dirty gym socks. Not that I know what that smells like, but if I had to guess, it would smell like this. Frame is completely coated. I went around with a rag. I got the underside as well. So I want to let this sit overnight. It says to let it dry for 24 hours, and you're not supposed to have to rinse it at all. Pretty much when I come back to this thing, hopefully, it should almost look like it's painted. It should have like a black coating on everything that was sprayed. So we'll revisit this tomorrow. It's been about 24 hours since we applied the Osfo rust treatment. I just went around and with painter's tape, just taped over anything, threads, bushings, anything like that that I didn't want covered in paint. And I'm going to throw a coat of gloss black, not using anything special, regular Rust-Oleum from Home Depot. And yeah, see how this thing looks with a fresh coat of black paint on it. So we'll get that done and bring you guys back in a minute. And the finished product. Nice coat of gloss black on there. Came out really, really good. Very happy with the way this looks. Unfortunately, I wanted to get more done in this video, but we ran into a couple issues, like I said, with the springs, the control arms. So it is what it is. But this is a lot of progress we made. And hopefully next video on this car will be building some suspension, plumbing some brake lines, fuel lines, and getting this ready to slide under the car. So thank you guys as always for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.